Rappers can get hundreds of millions of views disrespecting women and telling black men to go out here and murder each other, and when they die, it's RIP or rest in heaven. Kevin Samuels comes along and tells black men that we can compete too, we just gotta be willing to collaborate and do it as a unit, and tells black women to not have children out of wedlock, and people on Twitter are cheering because he passed away. And this is what I'm talking about. We have horrible qualities that we like in our culture. If a man starts getting too well spoken, now he speak white. And these are the same. United States on black people's behalf. That's our best representation? Like, let's just be completely honest, bro. We worship the wrong qualities in human beings in our culture. So let me...
We are at it once again in the greatest state in the Union, the Tar Heel State. First of all, guys, happy 4th of July. I want to take the time to talk about something that's been on my heart and my mind concerning not only men and male rights, but also the power to choose. You know, Harriet Tubman said that I could free a lot more if they didn't already know that they were slaves. And just like Juneteenth was celebrated as it relates to, you know, people of Ado's descent, the American patriots that fought for this country celebrate the 4th of July as celebration of freedom from British tyranny. Some of you men are actually walking through or are in tyranny based on the current relationship that you're in. Many of you don't have power, many of you don't have freedom, many of you don't have a peace of mind. And you don't have peace of mind because you have not adequately, shout out to Mr. Palmer, changed the law in your mind. Once you change the law in your mind, you can start walking in power, you can start walking in abundance, and you can start walking in freedom. But you'll never walk in abundance and freedom if you're still a slave to your mind. Listen, as a licensed professional, one of the things I tell guys is that you have to modify your thought processes in order to get the outcomes that you want. But until you are willing to modify your thought processes, until you're willing to understand what power you really have, you will always be a slave, not to your purpose, but you will be a slave to her feelings. I'm gonna say it again. Until you change the law in your mind, you will be a slave to her feelings instead of being a slave to your purpose. The greatest thing that a man can do is let his yea be nay and his yea be yea, his nay be nay. The greatest thing that a man can do for his woman periodically is telling her no. Some of you men are in relationships, you've never told her no. She doesn't respect you. She uses you. She takes your resources. And she's got you in a predicament where she always have you questioning yourself. Because some of you men have been spellbound by the whole so-called or the whole concept of love. But watch this. If love causes you to compromise your manhood, if love causes you to compromise the things you deem to be valuable and important, then that's the kind of love that I don't want. Love that costs me my freedom of mind, freedom of soul, and freedom of spirit is not the type of love that I want. And so a woman is not attracted to men that always placate to her feelings or her whims. Women are attracted to men that set boundaries and standards. Now, some might not like what you do initially, but guess what? She's going to begin to honor you and respect you once you set the precedent. Women are turned on by power and respect. It's in their nature. But watch this. Some of you men have been so conditioned to serve your woman without demanding anything in return, it's to the point that she takes you for granted. And, you know, a woman is not going to respect a man that does not have any respect for himself. That's why the bad boys get more respect many times, because those men have a healthy level of respect for themselves. And instead of that man chasing her validation, which is counterintuitive, she's chasing his validation. Remember this when it comes down to behavioral psychology. In a relationship, as I talked about before in the past, relationships should be congruent, or what I call symmetrical. When a woman values a man and he get his needs met and she get her needs met, both getting their needs met, then it's a mutual beneficial relationship. But if the man is constantly placating to her, if the man is constantly kissing her behind, If the man is constantly giving her needs met and he's not getting his needs met, then guess what? That man begins to suffer in silence and his greatness as a man begins to diminish. I'm going to ask you guys a question. What are you willing to render to become the better version of yourself? What are you willing to give to become the better version of yourself? What are you willing to do as it relates to self-introspection to challenge those negative thoughts that have been impacting you for a long time? Some of you guys know in your heart that what you're doing is wrong. But because you've been a slave to your emotions and you're a slave to feelings instead of being a slave to principle, you continue to allow yourself to go do a circular argument in your head that you know that's not adequately benefiting you as a man. And then it doesn't get any better because you have men that have been conditioned not to see masculinity and fatherhood in its rawest form. So you question yourself. Some will say, oh, he's toxic, because anything that's related to masculinity nowadays is toxic. They'll say that he's a tyrant, or he hates women, or his mama is black, or any other kind of foolish idiom to more or less get you off your square as a man. But when you continue to stand firm in your convictions as a man, when you continue to stand on your square, when you continue to not allow her shenanigans to corral you or change how you think about yourself and what you believe in, now you have power in that relationship. And that power will eventually lead to freedom. It's very powerful when a man has the freedom to express himself without fear of retribution. But many of you men live in relationships where you have no freedom. You live in relationships where you have no power. You live in relationships where she dictates everything that you do. You can't go anywhere because you're afraid that she might get upset, because you are a slave to her feelings instead of being a slave to her purpose. Remember, I told you guys, there are 7 steps that a man must go through in order to become optimized. And one of those 7 steps is understanding female nature and female psychology. Once a man can adequately and succinctly understand female nature and female psychology, he's no longer a slave of her feelings, but he's a slave to his purpose. And see, when you're a slave to your purpose, not only are you protecting her, but you're protecting yourself. And you protect yourself because now you're not beholden to her feelings and when she used her feelings to manipulate you. Did you guys know that some, not all, I'm not gonna say all because there's some decent women that don't do it. So shout out to the good women. Gonna say it again, shout out to the decent sisters. But there are women that use their emotions, guys, to manipulate you and control you. They'll cry, they'll stomp their feet, they'll use shaming language, they'll panter, they'll do all kinds of things to get you off your square as a man. And they'll do that because they want power in the relationship. And so the more you give them power without demanding anything in return, then guess what? You continue to be in a circular argument. You know, I remember Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee said you have to be like water. Bruce Lee was famous, and you know, I would, if I had to make a point of the declaration, I would say that most men need mental kung fu. That's a new term I'm gonna come up with, mental kung fu. You gotta use mental kung fu on her, because mental kung fu is your self-defense. It's a man, masculine mental kung fu. That's a new term I'm gonna create, masculine mental kung fu. When you can use masculine mental kung fu, then shout out to Mr. Palmer once again, then you can change the law of your mind, because you know how to block any of the negative idiosyncrasies that she's using to keep you from becoming a slave to her feelings. When you're being like water, you're not able to be manipulated by her emotions. But when you're like water, you'll know how to bend and move around the shenanigans that she's doing. And Bruce Lee was famous for it. Bruce Lee knew how to be like water. And that was one of Bruce Lee's famous quotes. He used be like water when it comes down to being focused and balanced. But some of you men are not like water. Some of you men are more into her feelings. And being in her feelings, guys, is not conducive to your functioning as a man. Are you guys tired of being slaves to her emotions? Are you ready to rise up to the mantle of manhood? Are you tired of being, or more or less second guessing yourself because of gaslighting? Are you tired of her cognitive dissonance? Listen, I'm not telling you not to love your woman. Love your woman, but love her within reason. Never love her more than you love your purpose and love yourself. Once you begin to love yourself in a humane and just way, then guess what? That woman gonna do one or two things. She's gonna either fall in line and respect your purpose and your mission, or you're gonna let her go. So I'm gonna challenge you guys on today. Use mental kung fu, guys. Mental kung fu. Be like Bruce Lee, be like water. Use mental kung fu to learn some of the deception, the tricks that the modern women are using to keep you in a state of despair and to keep you in a state of perplexity. And I need you guys to remember, this is their 7 steps to male optimization. If it ain't 7, it ain't kosher. If it ain't kosher, it ain't right. Listen, guys, I love you guys. Happy 4th of July. And once again, like Bruce Lee said, I need you guys to be like water and always use that mental kung fu. Be well.